Hello, fight fans, and welcome to another edition of Monday Night Fight Talk. As always, I am your host, Dylan Brewski. Very excited to be with you today I'm still in shock. I am still legitimately in shock from what took place Saturday night. The pound for pound king, Kamaru Usman, 1 minute away 1 minute from retaining his title, and he gets dethroned by Leon Edwards. I'm gonna have a much bigger breakdown later on in the show, but I was speechless Saturday night. I literally was speechless, just sitting there right behind me on that bed, just in complete shock at what I had just seen. But we had a lot of stuff go on Saturday. Because to start off the show, we got to talk about the last set of finals matchups in PFL is finally here. We know all the finals matchups now. So that's very, very exciting. So let's get right into the PFL. Why don't we? That was the first event that took place, so might as well get into that. Starting off with the women's lightweight division. I'm going to start off with this one because both fights were very short. Neither of them made it out of the first round. So, might as well talk about those because there's not going to be a whole lot to talk about. Another dominant victory for the number one seed, Larissa Pacheco. She completely dominated this fight against a very tough competitor, Elena Kolesnik. She's a very good grappler. She's not the most active fighter, but she's a great grappler, has great wrestling. So I figured that she would put up somewhat of a challenge. Not at all. Larissa Pacheco looked phenomenal in this fight in the 2 minutes that it lasted, getting another TKO victory in the first round, setting up her matchup in the PFL Women's Lightweight Finals. Another shot for her as she was the runner-up in either 2018 or 2019. I believe it was 2019 that she was the runner-up. So she will be looking for vengeance and to get that $1 million and the gold. But she's going to have to go against the reigning, defending two-time champ, the undefeated Kayla Harrison, after an unbelievable performance. She did exactly what she always does. She landed all her strikes on the ground after she got a very early takedown in under a minute. This fight lasted only a minute longer than the Pacheco-Kolesnik fight, but, it was just as dominant, maybe even more dominant on Kayla Harrison's part. Like I said, she took her to the ground early, did most of her damage on the ground, and then she was able to get in full mount, sink in the head and arm triangle, and that was it. And she comes in looking for a three-peat against Larissa Pacheco. I think this is going to be a very exciting fight. Larissa Pacheco looks phenomenal this year. She has been dominant in all three of the fights that she's participated in. So this could be a very good matchup for Kayla Harrison, but we will have to wait and see. As we know, Kayla Harrison's been just completely dominant so far. And now for the men's featherweight division, starting off with Ryoji Kudo versus Bubba Jenkins. I'm starting off with this fight because, again, like the women's lightweight fights, this wasn't that long of a fight either. This ended in the first round as well. This is kind of how I expected this fight to play out. Not necessarily the early 2-minute finish. I'll admit, I didn't expect a finish in this fight. I thought Bubba Jenkins was going to win by decision. Just dominate grappling, get him to the ground, hold him there, get some ground and pound in. But I fully didn't expect him to just get a finish in the first round. That's not the type of guy Bubba Jenkins usually is. But that's exactly what happened. Got him to the ground, landed some big strikes on the ground, and then got on Ryoji Kudo's back, sunk in the rear naked choke, and that was it. And now he is in the PFL Finals, taking on the upset, the king of, in front of his home crowd. Brendan Loughnane gets it done as the 4 seed. Chris Wade has looked phenomenal this year. He got the only finish, one of two finishes from the finalists, the semifinalists, and he got completely outclassed in this fight. Loughnane showed out. I'm actually quite surprised that neither of these guys landed a takedown in this fight. Both of them are very good grapplers. And I thought that Loughnane just wasn't going to be active enough to win the decision. But he was way more active than I thought he would be. I think he had more output in this fight than the first two fights combined. He looked absolutely great, was on fire with his hands. He was phenomenal. He had phenomenal kicks. I think he was 24 for 34 on his kicks. Looked absolutely fantastic. Huge win for Brendan Loughnane, setting up Bubba Jenkins versus Brendan Loughnane, the 3 versus 4 in this featherweight division. So that's pretty interesting that the 3 versus 4 took out the 1 and 2. But I'm very excited for that fight. That's going to be a phenomenal fight. Brendan Loughnane just took down a great grappler. Can he do it twice when he faces Bubba Jenkins in the finals? But that's really all we have for PFL, because that was the last set of finals or semifinal matchups, like I said. So we are going to wait. I don't even think the finals have had an announcement for their date, so we'll have to wait and see when those finals matchups get announced. Very excited, though. We got 6 weight divisions. Very, very excited to see how all those turn out. But for now, that's all I got for PFL. Let's transition over to UFC 278. Starting off, first fight of the night, Daniel Da Silva, Victor Altamirano. This was a very one-sided fight but on both sides. So, like, in the beginning, Daniel Da Silva looked like he was about to come out and absolutely dominate. His striking was on point the entire time. He got a knockdown on Altamirano very early in this fight, and his hands looked really, really good. But then the knee to the body happened. Victor Altamirano landed an absolutely nasty knee to the body that dropped Daniel Da Silva. Daniel Da Silva was able to hang around for a little bit, but Altamirano was landing these big elbows, just raining down huge shots. And instead of trying to get up, which Daniel Da Silva, I think, could have done fairly easily at certain points, he kept going for this arm bar. He kept going and trying to use jiu-jitsu off of his back. And I get that 1 or 2 times, but after a certain amount of times, you got to realize this maybe isn't going to work. I got to get up and stop these elbows from raining down on my head. Ultimately, he didn't do that, and Victor Altamirano got the TKO victory. It was kind of a late stoppage, and a lot of people, including my opinion, where Victor Altamirano looked like he kind of won this. He won this fight a lot earlier than the ref stopped it, but ultimately he still got the victory, so congratulations to him, starting off the night in a big way. Now we have the second fight of the night, Orichi Long taking on Jay Perrin. This was on its way to be fight of the night. This was a very exciting fight before the co-main event happened. The co-main event was the one that ended up with fight of the night. But this one had some serious contention for that, because both of these guys let it all go. This was a extremely entertaining fight. Orichi Long looked phenomenal with his hands. He had some power in those shots that he was throwing, but Jay Perrin rocked him a couple times too, mostly in the third round. Jay Perrin definitely got that third round. He looked really, really good in that third round. And I'm actually kind of surprised that none of the refs, or none of the judges gave Jay Perrin that fight. I get that the first round takedown that he got was very late. Orichi Long kind of was winning that round already, and then in the final 30 seconds, Jay Perrin gets a takedown. But I figured that at least one of the judges would have given him the fight 2 different rounds. But nonetheless, I think Orichi Long definitely won the fight, even with him being outstruck and getting 3 takedowns against him. I think Orichi Long won the fight. I think that was the right call. So congratulations to him on a big win over a very good fighter and a very great fight. And then the last of the early prelims, the return of Amir Albazi taking on the younger brother of the champ, Francisco Figueiredo. What a return it was, though, for Amir Albazi. He looked fantastic. I thought he would be a little bit, at least in the beginning, struggle just a little bit with getting acclimated back into the octagon. No, he didn't miss a step. He was phenomenal. He looked stronger than ever, I think. I mean, holy crap. He completely just overpowered and dominated Francisco Figueiredo, who was on a little bit of a hot streak. He won 2 straight and had a really good win earlier this year by knee bar. But, man, he completely, like I said, completely overpowered Francisco Figueiredo. He was able to get the back of Francisco Figueiredo, and that was a wrap. Able to sink in the rear naked choke and get the win in his return. I think this guy is going to be a serious problem in the future for the flyweight division. I don't know how many people above him are even going to want to take the chance to fight him, because he looks absolutely fantastic in his 3 fights in the UFC, and including this return fight after, I believe, like a 16 or 18 month layoff, just with opponents pulling out, him having to pull out, just a bunch of different issues going on with him. But nonetheless, congratulations to Amir Albazi for a win in his return fight. Now we got the first fight of the regular prelims. So we just went over the early prelims. Now we got the regular prelims, a matchup in the welterweight division, a very fun matchup in the welterweight division between AJ Fletcher and Ange Loosa. Both guys had very big moments in this fight. AJ Fletcher got very close to a finish in that second round. He was landing bombs on Ange Loosa, but Ange Loosa wasn't going down to the ground. Props to the ref. I believe it was Herb Dean at that point in this fight. Props to Herb Dean for not stopping that fight, because I feel like quite a few refs probably would have seen Ange Loosa just leaning up against the fence and stop the fight, because he was just getting punched really hard. But he was able to keep it moving. But unfortunately for AJ Fletcher, he gassed himself out trying to finish Ange Loosa in that moment. He completely gassed out after that. That third round was completely insane by Ange Loosa. To put up that much output, he landed 116 strikes in the third round alone. That was almost half of his strikes the entire fight. He landed 241 strikes in that fight. 116 came in the first round, or the third round alone. And that was compared to AJ Fletcher's 14 in the third round. Unbelievable showing for Ange Loosa to come back in that third round. I think he won the first round. The second round was AJ Fletcher had that moment, but besides that, he didn't do much after that. And then in that third round, I mean, Ange Loosa just looked absolutely phenomenal and got the decision victory, his first win in the UFC. So congratulations to him, coming off of a debut loss earlier this year. So congratulations to Ange Loosa for picking up that all-important first UFC win. Now for one of the weirdest fights, one of the weirdest decisions I have ever seen. This might be the weirdest decision. I don't think I've ever seen this type of decision before in all my time watching the UFC. Sean Woodson taking on Luis Saldana. Luis Saldana had a fantastic first round. He got 2 knockdowns. He was about to finish the fight on the second knockdown, and then he runs over and knees Sean Woodson in the head while he was down. He thought he won. He thought the ref was stopping it because he won. He's jumping on the fence. He's so excited. he committed a illegal shot. You can't knee to the head of a downed opponent. And Sean Woodson was very clearly down. He was sitting on his butt. He was very clearly down, and the second round was a lot closer. Saldana got a takedown, but he wasn't able to do much damage because Sean Woodson had him in, I believe they called it the buggy choke. It's never been completed in the UFC. And it sounds like it's a fairly new submission, but it was a very weird one where it was kind of like a triangle choke, but he was using arms and legs and all this other stuff. But that could have put him losing the second round in some of the judges' eyes because he was just stuck in that position for 2 minutes. And then the third round, also a very close round, a very tough round to call, with Woodson having great takedown defense, striking numbers separated by 3 in that round. It was a very, very close round. And at the end, a split draw. I have been watching the UFC on and off. I'll admit there's been some times where I haven't been completely into the UFC since I started watching it, but I have never, ever seen a split draw decision. And it goes to show you shouldn't celebrate those victories before they happen. I think this is going to be a great lesson for Luis Saldana. I think he's going to learn from this. I'm sure he's harder on himself than any of us could be on him, so I'm not going to drag him into the ground for celebrating what he thought was a victory. But at the same time, you got to make sure, you got to clean it up just a little bit, because he has the talent. He's incredibly talented, but just got to clean it up a little bit. Nonetheless, a very, very entertaining fight between those two. And now we have Leonardo Santos taking on Jared Gordon. A very one-sided affair. Jared Gordon just went off with his hands. Unbelievable what he did with his hands in this fight. Santos, I'm really surprised he didn't try to take this fight to the ground more. I mean, he's a jiu-jitsu master. I mean, this guy's jiu-jitsu is on another level. And he attempts 3 takedowns in this fight. 2 of them in 1 round and then 1 in the third, or maybe the other way around. I think it was the second round he attempted 2, the third round he attempted 1. I could have those numbers mixed up, but still, it's just like, dude, you're a jiu-jitsu specialist. That's what you do, is get people to the ground and submit them, and he didn't do that enough. And then his striking, he didn't put enough output. When Jared Gordon almost landed 4 times the amount of strikes that Santos did. The difference was 203 strikes for Gordon to 41 of Leonardo Santos. Complete victory, complete domination on the part of Jared Gordon. Unbelievable showing for him. Congratulations. I know the commentators were kind of bringing up his overdose. I'm with a lot of people around the world that didn't really like that. I don't think that's the time or place to bring that up. But nonetheless, huge win for him. So congratulations to Jared Gordon for getting that win on such a big stage too. Next up, another crazy / weird fight between a couple of ranked heavyweights. Marcin Tybura taking on the undefeated Moldovan Alexander Romanov. Or I should say former undefeated Alexander Romanov. First round was completely one-sided for Alexander Romanov. He dominated the first round. He outstruck Marcin Tybura 64-1. He had 2 humongous slam takedowns. Unbelievable. Just, he destroyed him in that first round. Second and third rounds, though, Romanov was gassed. He gassed himself out on the first round. Tybura came back and took the final 2 rounds very easily, too. Very clear victories in the second and third round. This fight, in my eyes, was a clear-cut draw. 10-8 for Alexander Romanov in the first round. 10-9 for Tibera in the second and third. That should have been 28-28. Two of the judges give Marcin Tibera only a 10-9 in the first round. I don't see how you can watch that first round and see a guy get outstruck 64-1 and two humongous slam takedowns and get dominated for an entire round and not 10-8 him. I think that's insane. I don't know if the judges didn't see. Since they're octagon side, they don't always have the greatest view of everything. But, I mean, come on. How do you not 10-8 that guy? So, unfortunately for Alexander Romanov, he now has a loss on his record due to majority decision. But, congratulations, Marcin Tibera. You did win 2 rounds. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of tough to say he didn't deserve a win in that matchup, but I would have personally had it as a draw in my eyes. Now we go to the main card, Tyson Pedro versus Harry Hunsucker. After watching his last 2 fights, Tyson Pedro might be at the top of the list of people I never want to be kicked by. And trust me, this list is very long. I don't want to be kicked by a lot of people. I don't want to be kicked by anybody. But Tyson Pedro might be at the top of that list. I can't say I've ever seen a guy get 2 TKO victories where neither of them were headshots. He basically destroyed Ike Villanueva's leg in the first round and dropped Ike Villanueva. I think once Ike Villanueva dropped, he landed some shots to the face, but the leg shot was the one that finished it. And then in this one, in a minute, with 1 body kick, he knocks Harry Hunsucker to the ground. 1 body kick. That's it. And then Harry Hunsucker dropped, and he got another TKO victory from a body shot. I have no desire to ever get touched by Tyson Pedro's legs. I mean, oh my gosh, this dude's kicking power must be outrageous. Congratulations to him. Second big win of this 2022. I know he had a long layoff before that. I believe he was dealing with some injuries, just nagging injuries where he was out for 2 or 3 years. He's come back, had 2 great wins, so congratulations to him on 2 pretty big stages too. Now we have the women's flyweight division, Wu Yanan taking on Luisa Padlova. This fight was kind of confusing on why they moved it to the main card when you have Tibera and Romanov. I would have personally moved Pedro and Hunsucker down to the prelims and had that if I wanted Wu Yanan and Lucy Pudlova to be on the main card that bad. I didn't really understand that decision to move Tibera and Romanov down to the prelims and this fight up, just because, I mean, Wu Yanan had lost 4 of her last 5, including her last 3. Pudlova was making a second stint in the UFC after losing 4 straight in her last stint. But I gotta say, this was an impressive return for Lucy Pudlova. I mentioned, like I said, she lost 4 straight. When she went down to other organizations, she actually had a pretty good run. She won 5 of 6. So, I mean, it's not like she's coming straight off of those 4 losses. She had a good run in other organizations. But, I mean, she looked phenomenal in this fight. She showed very good grappling, got a couple takedowns, attempted a submission, and then showed tremendous ground and pound, which got her the victory. She was able to get in full mount and just rain some big blows down on Wu Yanan and get the victory. Unfortunately for Wu Yanan, that might be her last shot at the UFC, at least for this one. Lucy Pudlova got a second shot. You never know. Wu Yanan could get that second shot also. But, I mean, losing 5 of 6, including your last 4, I don't think you're going to be on the roster for very much longer. But, I mean, I'm not a decision maker. I'm not saying that they should fire her. I'm not saying that they should do anything. But it's going to be tough to see if she is able to actually continue in the UFC. Nonetheless, though, this is about Lucy Pudlova in her big return. Congratulations to her on getting the TKO victory. Now, let's get to the first of nothing against the previous fights I've talked about, but this pay per view was about the final three fights. These were the three biggest fights by far on this card, starting off with the legend himself, Jose Aldo, taking on Merab Dvalishvili. I'm not going to lie to you guys, Jose Aldo lost this fight more than Dvalishvili won this fight. Don't get me wrong, Merab pushed the pace. He looked pretty good in this fight, I won't lie. But, I mean, he did go 0 for 16 on takedowns. You don't see a lot of guys winning the fight going 0 for 16 on takedowns. But, I mean, I truly expected Jose Aldo to come out more aggressive. I know he's used to those 5-round fights where he can kind of take the first round to feel his opponent out. I've been going back and watching a lot of the UFC title fights, and I'm in Jose Aldo's run, and he did this all the time where he kind of just sit back and let his opponent come to him for the first round and a half or so, and then you turn it on and he beat you at the end of the day. He never turned it on in this fight. I think the elevation definitely played a big factor in that. A lot of guys were completely gassed in this fight and on this card, and he was one of them. Jose Aldo did not have his even close to his greatest showing on this one. It's always tough to see a legend have a performance like that because he just didn't do enough to win. He did not do anywhere near enough to win. This was a very, very big win, though, for Merab Dvalishvili. It will be interesting to see. I know he kind of said that he's tired of hearing about it, but I mean, it's tough not to talk about it. If Aljamain Sterling beats TJ Dillashaw in October at UFC 280, what do we do? Dvalishvili's got to be the next guy in line. I mean, who else do you put there? Maybe Chito Vera? Do you put Chito Vera there? Maybe because Dvalishvili won't take this shot, but Dvalishvili and Sterling are very good friends. They're training partners. I don't see them fighting each other. I don't know if one of them makes a weight class change. I've heard that there's rumors that Merab might try to go down to flyweight. I've heard there's rumors of Aljamain Sterling trying to go up to featherweight. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be very interesting to see. Maybe they give it to Chito Vera, and if Chito Vera beats Sterling, you throw Dvalishvili against Chito Vera. I don't know what's going to happen. We will have to wait and see on that one. But it will be very interesting to see. Now, for the co-main event, the fight of the night, one of the craziest fights in general I've ever seen. Paulo Costa taking on Luke Rockhold. Both of these guys put everything on the line in this fight, especially Luke Rockhold. Luke Rockhold was completely and utterly gassed after the first round. He had his hands on his knees after the first round. That's how gassed this guy was. But then he never gave up. You look at the third round, he looks at Paulo Costa and says F you twice, and then rocks him with this huge left hook. Just unbelievable. Getting on top of Costa in full mount in the last minute and rubbing your bloody face on him. What the heck was going on? This was crazy. This was an insane fight. And he did all that knowing he was losing this fight. He was easily losing this fight. Paulo Costa kind of dominated this fight. It was Luke Rockhold just had little bits and moments where he kind of rocked Paulo Costa. But other than that, Paulo Costa was dominating this fight. Just an insane fight. And to top it all off, Luke Rockhold, the legend, the former middleweight champion, retires after this fight, leaving behind an amazing career. that could have gone far better if it wasn't for these nagging injuries. Before this fight, he hadn't fought since 2019, dealing with a staph infection. He had something, I believe he had bulging discs in his back, just a whole bunch of different injuries that piled up on him over the years. Unfortunately, that kind of cut his career short. Had a great post-fight interview with Joe Rogan where he talks about, man, I'm old. I'm too old to be doing this now. But phenomenal career nonetheless for Luke Rockhold. Like I said, former champion, a legend of the game, truthfully. I'm very excited to see what Luke Rockhold does in the future, but I know it kind of overshadows the fact that this was a pretty big win for Paulo Costa. He had lost his last two, so it's good to see him getting back on the winning side of things, especially because he looked phenomenal physically. He didn't struggle with his weight cut this time. He was actually under. He won 85.5 with the 186 being with the 1 pound weight allowance. So very phenomenal to see Paulo Costa be able to do that, put on that performance, not have the brutal weight cut that he's had in the past, one that he wasn't even able to complete against Marvin Vettori in his fight before this. So congratulations to Paulo Costa on the victory nonetheless, and congratulations to Luke Rockhold on retirement. And that leads to the main event of the evening. One of the biggest upsets in UFC history. One of the greatest finishes in UFC history, and one of the greatest comebacks in UFC history took place all in one fight. Leon Edwards came out in that first round, and he looked great. He looked phenomenal. I was taken back by how good he looked. I expected Leon Edwards to be way better than he was the first time that they matched up. He looked crazy good in that first round. First man to ever take down Kamaru Usman. Gets in full mount. Gets Kamaru Usman's back and attempts a rear naked choke in the first round. Looks great. Easily took round one. 10-9 Edwards. Great start. Rounds 2, 3, and 4, and about the first half of round 5, Kamaru Usman does what he does. Gets the takedown, has really good striking too. He had very good striking. Great body work. He was hitting Leon Edwards with some brutal body shots and just taking him to the ground and doing what Kamaru Usman does and dominates everyone for the first 3.5 rounds. The 5th round was a little bit closer, but rounds 2, 3, and 4, easily Kamaru Usman. I personally had Kamaru Usman winning the 5th round until the finish. And then, man, a minute left in the 5th round, and Leon Edwards puts Kamaru Usman's lights out. Unbelievable. And I've heard a lot of people talking smack like Leon Edwards got lucky. It was a lucky shot. Now, I could see saying it's a lucky win, and I don't even think that's the right word. But for lack of a better term, it was a lucky win because he was about to lose a decision to Kamaru Usman. But you can't say that was a lucky kick because he set that up amazing. He fakes that left hand, and he sees Kamaru Usman dip that head, and he throws his left leg up and kicks him in the head. Completely knocks out the pound-for-pound king. Kamaru Usman with the upset of the year so far. Without a doubt, this year, 2022, right now, that is the biggest upset of 2022. This right here, Leon Edwards now becoming the welterweight champion, this right here is why MMA is the greatest sport on the planet. He was about to lose a second fight to Kamaru, he would be, if he would have lost this fight, I mean, you don't see Leon Edwards getting another title shot. He's lost twice to the champ. Maybe years down the road, Kamaru Usman retires or something, goes off to boxing, doing whatever he does. Maybe Leon Edwards gets a shot again. But he's not getting another shot against Kamaru Usman, not after what took place in this fight where Kamaru Usman was probably going to win a 49-46 decision. And he did it. I was, like I said in the beginning of the show, I was in complete shock. I was standing up, like I said, right behind me with my hands on my head, speechless at what had just happened. Just pure amazement. I can't give enough congratulations to Leon Edwards, to the UK, to Jamaica for their firstborn Jamaican champion. Congratulations. His gym, everyone involved with Leon Edwards, congratulations. I can't say it. This was one of the greatest moments in MMA history. And this is coming from someone who loves Kamaru. I love Kamaru Usman. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch. He's unbelievably talented. But to watch Leon Edwards finally get his moment. This was 7 years in the making, this rematch was. And he did it. He dethroned the king. Unbelievable. And got to give props to Leon Edwards for fully, he's in the clear. He knows it's an immediate rematch. Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards will be an immediate rematch. If anyone in the UFC deserves a rematch right now, it's Kamaru freaking Usman. Unbelievable fighter. Unbelievable fight. And I've heard rumors of Usman versus Edwards 3 in London. Ooh. I would love that. I think that's perfect. I mean, you have to almost. Just unbelievable night. I know a lot of people were underwhelmed about this card. It wasn't the greatest card in terms of fighter names, aside from these last 3 fights. But I think this fight delivered. This whole card delivered. Unbelievable night. And now we got 2 weeks until another UFC event, and then we have a big one. But that's all I have for this week. Thank you all so much for listening. Next week, going to be another short show. No UFC event, like I said. No PFL. We're done with the semifinals. We got to wait till they announce the finals date. There was no Bellator. But next week, I will be reacting to one. One has... They'll be making their debut on Prime Video. It'll be prime time here in the U.S., so I'll definitely watch that, give you guys my reaction as the legend Demetrius Johnson will be fighting for the Flyweight Championship to gain back the Flyweight Championship against, I believe his name's Alex Moreno? Sorry if that's not his name. I'm kind of drawing a blank on what his first name is. I know it's Moreno. That's his last name for the Flyweight Championship. So that'll be very exciting. Plus, I will be giving my predictions for UFC Fight Night in Paris, France. Going to be a huge one. This is the first time the UFC's ever been in France. And its headline, it's got 2 humongous fights on it. Cyril Gane versus Tai Tuivasa, the 1 versus 3 heavyweights, and then also another 1 versus 3 matchup in the middleweight division. Former champ Robert Whittaker, former title contender Marvin Vettori going at it. That's going to be both of those fights. I'm very excited for. Plus, there's some other big fights. Katlyn Chookagian taking on Manon Fiorot, I believe, is on that card. There's a few others that I'm blanking on for the time being, but stay tuned for that. Until then, thank you all again for listening. You can find me on Instagram at Monday Night Fight Talk. You can find me on Twitter at MN Fight Talk. Feel free to send me DMs if you have any questions. If you want my opinion on something, I can either shoot you a message right back or put you on my show. I can give you a quick shout out if you would like that too. Also, an announcement. We will be moving the Bolt, a show I co-host for, where we talk more general sports, MLB, NBA, NFL, and we got the NFL's about to start, the regular season, that is. So definitely there's going to be some big shows coming up. Stay tuned for that on Squabo Says' YouTube channel. We are moving from Tuesdays at 3:30 Pacific time to Fridays at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And our first show is this Friday, and we will be doing a live fantasy football draft for our competitive league that we do every year, where all of us on the show, plus a few fans or guests that we've had on the shows, will also be involved in that league. So stay tuned for that. Watch that. It's going to be a very, very fun show. But until then, I'm going to say it again. Thank you all so much for listening. Find me here, same time, same place next week, Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific time for Monday Night Fight Talk for all your MMA needs. Thank you all so much for listening.